All right, today's podcast is going to be about what actually killed the dinosaurs and how the human species is not planning for it. What I mean by that is human beings right now are obsessed with global warming. That's a good thing. We should care about the planet. But global warming, man made global warming, is not what killed the dinosaurs. What did kill the dinosaurs was we got hit by a meteor that killed off the planet, caused an ice age, a very rapid ice age. Now, if something similar to that happened again, how would the human species survive? We have the advantage of knowing what happened before, so we need to plan for how the human species would survive whether it's an asteroid or a climate event on the scale of the one that killed the dinosaurs. What's the most likely one right now? Would be the eruption of Yellowstone National Park. Most people don't know it, but Old Faithful is really the largest volcano on Earth. Last time Old Faithful went off, it covered most of the Dakotas, Minnesota, the Great Plains, and several feet of volcanic ash within a day. New York got over a foot, and it triggered an ice age. An ice age that, if that event happened right now, the majority of the people in the northern hemisphere would be dead within a year, and others would have to flee to the southern hemisphere. You would see rapid global cooling. You'd have a lot of acid rain. You'd have a lot of sulfur in the atmosphere. The majority of the plants that are alive on this planet now wouldn't be. So we should be thinking about, if you get hit with a meteor that causes this event or Old Faithful goes off, how are we going to feed ourselves? How are we going to migrate as a people peacefully? So, as part one, I believe the food industry, genetically modified food, should begin to spend time in preparing a food source that can live, thrive, and survive in what would happen after a meteor hits, after Old Faithful goes off. Cooler temperatures, less sunlight, a lot of acid rain. Part two, we need to figure out where the majority of the people in the northern hemisphere would move to if most of the northern hemisphere was covered with ice and most of the southern hemisphere too. There'd be a huge rush for the equator. Now, some people may foolishly say that won't be a problem, don't worry about it. No, the majority of the people in the northern hemisphere, the Americans, the Russians, the British, the French, the Germans, have nuclear weapons, have the armies. They are going to impose themselves on the equator or the southern hemisphere. What we should be thinking about now is, how do we pre-negotiate that, pre-prepare for it in a way that's peaceful and rational, not in a way that's terrifying, violent. And I would think the Russians are going to try to take China. Chinese have nukes. They'll put an end to that. India, similar issue, but still only overpopulated. The big rush from Russia and Europe would be the Middle East and Africa for several reasons. Number one, they can't defend themselves against nuclear weapons and the level of military ability of the Europeans and the Russians. The Americans are going to move south. Texas, Florida, yes. Mexico, absolutely. Also, they're going to look towards South America, and they're coming one way or the other. It would be best to prepare for it, pre-negotiate it, and have some way to handle the massive rush of people. I know this is something most people don't talk about, but given the Earth's planet history, that is more likely to happen than mass extinction by global warming. And to be honest, you may only delay the problem for a while, a mass human extinction, but if we don't plan for what killed the dinosaurs as part of human extinction on Earth, then it's more likely to happen. It's better to be prepared, to have genetically modified food that would survive in that type of environment, have some type of evacuation or relocation framework put up between the northern hemisphere, the southern hemisphere, and the countries that are closest to the equator, which is where most life is going to be able to survive. And if you think it's not an issue, do you think the Americans and Russians would allow themselves to freeze and starve to death without relocating somewhere warmer and somewhere with a good chance of growing food? My expectations are the Americans and Russians will go take what they have to survive, and that the people there are going to have a hard time defending themselves, and the Russians aren't going to help the South Americans with if the Americans head south, and the Americans aren't going to help the Middle East if the Russians go in there, because they're going to have too many of their own problems. The last thing they're going to want is a nuclear exchange, because you're not going to stop either side. And if they do have to use nukes, they probably will. So it would be much better to negotiate that up front. Now, my general plan would be that the governments, the American government, the European governments, and the Russian governments, now begin to look at genetically modified food that could grow and what hit the dinosaurs. Something that could potentially feed the billions of people that survive and head off mass starvation. In addition, what can we get out of the oceans, and what will the oceans be like in a post-disaster environment? Something that killed the dinosaurs. There's going to be a lot more the oceans are going to be very acidic. There's going to be a lot less daylight. That means most fish in the sea are going to die off, and we have to be prepared to handle the urge to overfish. The oceans are going to be going through a lot of stress, and there's not much growing on land, so the desire to get all your food out of the ocean is going to be overwhelming. That's going to lead to massive overfishing and a lot of health issues for all the fish that people eat. Those situations should be thought through and attempt to address prior to the disaster. We may have 1,000 years, we may have 100 days. We don't know, but the important thing is to prepare. And think about it, you get insurance for disasters. This is a disaster that's hit the earth multiple times. The previous dominant species were the dinosaurs, and there is no preparation that I know of at this time for what would happen if a species-killing event hit the earth. If what happened to the dinosaurs, or something close to what happened to the dinosaurs, were to happen today, I think we'd be in a very uncontrolled, unplanned situation where hundreds of millions, if not billions of people die unnecessarily. And you think of all the time and energy we spend on global warming, we just spent 1/10 of that time and energy on preparing for what would happen in a species-killing event to the earth. Basically, what killed the dinosaurs happens to us. How do we prepare, and how do we deal with it the day after, the month after, the year after, the decade after? That is something I think the human race should begin to spend some time and some money on. My name's Tim Anderson. This is Tim's TV. This is my podcast about how do we save the human species from a species-killing event.